Hello, this is Susan Woods, your Black Lives Matter fraud investigator. Thank you for your time. This is episode number 6 of the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation Form 990 analysis, and we're focusing on Part 5, statements regarding other IRS filings and tax compliance. What is the Form 990? The Form 990 information return, or Form 990, is an annual report the IRS requires all 501c3 nonprofit organizations to submit to provide information about revenues and expenses for the prior year. The type of Form 990 nonprofit organizations submit depends on the type of nonprofit organization and the amount of revenues and assets the nonprofit organization has on record. Form 990s are due by the 15th day of the 5th month after the fiscal year ends. For example, if the fiscal year ends on December the 31st, then the Form 990 is due by May 15th of the next year. The primary purpose of the Form 990 is to demonstrate transparency and accountability to the public. The Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation Form 990 analysis. I have been creating episodes that talk about the red flags I've discovered in the different sections of the Form 990 information return. So episode number 1 dealt with the section entitled Heading, and that's on page 1, and I identified 4 red flags. Episode number 2 pertained to part 1, the summary, on page 1, and I didn't identify any red flags that I documented because I'm going to come back after I've completed the analysis of the entire Form 990 and then fill in the blanks for that section. So that's a to be determined. Episode number 3, part 2, signature block. That was also on page 1, and I identified 2 red flags. Episode number 4, part 3, statement of program service accomplishments. That's on page 2, and I identified 6 red flags. Episode number 5, part 4, checklist of required schedules. That's located on pages 3 and 4, and I identified 2 red flags. In this episode, we're going to talk about Part 5, statements regarding other IRS filings and tax compliance. This information is on pages 4 and 5 of the Form 990 information return, and I will identify the red flags as I go along and then come back to this screen to let you know how many red flags I did identify. The red flags represent information that's not accurate in the Form 990 information return. So I'm highlighting information that is not accurate, and I am classifying that information as red flags. So now I'm going to pause my screen so that I can go out and pull up the Form 990 information return and start our investigation on Part 5 of the Form 990 information return. Thank you for your patience as I navigate to this new screen. Okay, so now you are seeing the Form 990 information return for the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation for the fiscal year, or for the year 2020. Now, all of the areas that I've highlighted in blue represent red flags that I've already discussed in the episodes that I described just a few moments ago. So I'm going to just page down until I get to the area that we're going to talk about for this episode. So we're talking about, and let me scroll down because it's on the bottom of page 4. We're talking about Part 5, statements regarding other IRS filings and tax compliance. Now, whenever you are analyzing a Form 990 information return or if you are completing a Form 990 information return, you want to always have the instructions for that return nearby. So I have the instructions for this Form 990 information return for 2020 right here in this tab, and I'm going to click on it. Now, I already have it set to the area where we're going to discuss in this particular episode, which is part 5, statements regarding other IRS filings and tax compliance. So that's where we're going to start with this particular episode. So again, I highly encourage you to have the instructions nearby because the instructions give detailed information about each line of each part. The Form 990 is divided into different sections and then different parts. And within those parts, there are different lines of information. So line 1A says, the organization must use Form 1096, annual summary and transmittal of U.S. information returns. Okay? Report all such returns filed for the calendar year ending with or within the organization's tax year. And I highlighted independent contractors because I have a feeling that the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation used independent contractors to do their work for them instead of full-time exempt employees per se. So let's go back now since we looked at line 1A, and everything that I've highlighted in blue as in terms of the lines are red flags. So this is red flag number 1. So now I'm going to go back to the Form 990 information return so that you can see what this line 1A pertains to. Okay, so now going back over, and here we are. It says line 1A, enter the number reported on box 3 of Form 1096. And they said they put in box 3 of Form 1096, 12, the number 12. So what is the Form 1096? I'm going to pull that up. I have all of the documents queued up for you. So I'm going to pull that up. And this is a Form 1096. And this is what you have to use if you meet that criteria. So it says in box number 3, indicate the number that you had, and they had 12. So in box number 3 here, they would have 12 to show the total number of different types of forms. And like I said, I suspect the forms that they are using would be the 1099, which are contractors. So that's just to let you know that this is an additional form that the accounting team had to create and submit along with the Form 990 for the fiscal year of 2020 or the calendar year of 2020. So I'm going to close that form out because I won't be referencing that form anymore. So now I'm going to go back to the Form 990, information return. So let's go down to 1C. Did the organization comply with backup withholding rules for reportable payments to vendors and reportable gambling winnings to prize winners? So they said yes to that. So if I go back to my instructions, we can look at what that particular line means. So line 1C, it says, for more information on backup withholding for missing or incorrect names or taxpayer identification numbers, see publication 1281, backup withholding for missing and incorrect names or tax identification numbers. So that's a red flag because why would you have missing and incorrect names for information pertaining to withholdings? So I'm going to go back to my documents because I did download publication 1281. So I'm going to go here. And this is the publication that they were referencing, 1281. And it's 81 pages. So clearly I'm not going to go through all of those pages, but I just wanted you to see how you would have to pull up these forms in order to get a good understanding of how the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation accounting team completed the information for them. So if you look at the table of contents, I see missing tax identification numbers and what that means on page 10. So I'm going to go over to page 10 quickly because, like I said, I'm not going to go through this whole thing. I just want to show you the process. Oops, the process that I use. Let's go back. The process that I use. I'm not going to go to page 10. I'm not going to do that because I forgot I had already highlighted some information that I want to share with you here. But you can download this form and go to that page 10 and learn all about that if you want to. But I just want to show what this was for. So the introduction provides enough information for me to do that. So it says here, part 1, introduction. This publication, and let me increase the size just in case it's a little small on your screen. Okay. Part 1, introduction. This publication contains information about the backup withholding requirements that apply to the information returns that you filed. The law provides that you may be required to withhold a specified percentage of certain reportable payments made to recipients, payees for whom you filed an information return that had a missing or incorrect taxpayer identification number. So that's why it's a red flag to me, because how did that happen? How did you neglect to not include a taxpayer identification number or include an incorrect taxpayer identification number? So on the Form 990 information return, I'm going to go back to that now. It states on Part 5, 1C, did the organization comply with backup withholding rules for reportable payments to vendors and reportable gambling winnings to prize winners? And they said yes. So that lets you know that that was a mistake. And so that's a red flag. I'm going to continue on to the next page. This is continuing a continuation of Part 5, statements regarding other IRS filings and tax compliance. And like I said, everywhere you see the blue highlighting, that represents a red flag to me. So on line 2A, it says, enter the number of employees reported on Form W3, transmittal of wage and tax return. I'm sorry, and tax statements filed for the calendar year ending with or within the year covered by this return. And you see the number 2. The number of employees they reported was 2. Now, when you think about this organization generated $90 million that they admit to generating, how can you have 2 people employed as employees, as full-time employees? Managing an organization with $90 million. Those 2 employees were Patrice Concoolers and Shalamaya Bowers. So that's a red flag. And the W3, Form W3, let me pull that up because I want you to see what it looks like. This is the Form W3. So this is another form that the accountant had to complete for the 2 full-time employees. Okay, the Form W3, transmittal of wage and tax statements. Okay, and this is the information regarding this particular form. But again, the accountant only had to complete 2 of them, since they only claim to have 2 full-time employees, which is remarkable. Which is remarkable. How can you have 2 full-time employees managing or governing a $90 million nonprofit organization, especially if they are Patrice Concoolers and Charlamagne Bowers. So that's the Form W-3. Okay, so now I'm going to keep going. So now we're back to the Form 990 information return, and on line 4A, at any time during the calendar year, did the organization have an interest in or a signature or other authority over a financial account in a foreign country, such as a bank account, securities account, or other financial account? And the answer was no. That is a red flag because the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation created another division in Toronto, Canada, that was managed or is managed by Patrice Concoolers' wife. They spent $6 million on a building that they were going to use to host Black Lives Matter meetings. So to say that they do not have an interest in or a signature or other authority over a financial account in a foreign country is incorrect. It's not accurate. Let's keep going. Line 6A. Does the organization have annual gross receipts that are normally greater than $100,000? And did the organization solicit any contributions that were not tax deductible as charitable contributions? Let me read that again because we're looking at the columns. The first column is yes, the second column is no. So does the organization have annual gross receipts that are normally greater than $100,000? And did the organization solicit any contributions that were not tax deductible as charitable contributions? Now, because I'm totally confused by the answer no here, let's go out to the instructions because maybe I don't understand what this question means. So let me go to the instructions and let me go to line 6A under part 5. So line 6A. So if you're ever confused or you need some additional assistance, always have your instructions pulled up so you can reference them. So I'm on line 6A under part 5. Make it a little bit bigger so we can read it. Line 6. Answer yes on line 6A only if the organization has annual gross receipts that are normally greater than $100,000 and if it solicited contributions not deductible under Section 170 during the tax year. So, did I read that question incorrectly? Answer yes, only if the organization has gross receipts normally greater than. Did this organization have gross receipts greater than $100,000? Yes, right? So when I go back, I'm confused. Why? Why did they put no there? Maybe the second part of the question makes them feel like they could put no. And did the organization solicit any contributions that were not tax deductible, as charitable contributions? We don't know. We don't know if they did or not. But they're saying they didn't. but they could have unrelated business income that we haven't discussed yet. They could have that, and I am quite sure that they do. So that's a red flag for me. So let's keep going. I think I have one. Was that it? Oh, that's the last one. Uh-oh. All right. Well, great. That's the last one. So let's go back through. We're on part 5, statements regarding other IRS filings and tax compliance. 1A is a red flag for me. 1C is a red flag for me. So that's 2 red flags. 2A is a red flag. 4A is a red flag. And 6A is a red flag. So in this particular part 5 of the Form 990 information return, I've identified how many? 5 red flags. 5 red flags. So I'm going to pause. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint on the page that I talked about. I was going to come back to once we have discussed the Form 990 information return so that we can look at filling in the blank here. So now I am showing you back to the chart, and we have finished talking about episode number 6, which is part 5, statements regarding other IRS filings and tax compliance, covering pages 4 and 5 on the bottom of page 4 and all of page 5. And I identified 5 red flags on that, in that particular part. 5 red flags. So far, if we do the math, we have 14 plus 5, 19 red flags on the first 5 sections of the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation's Form 990. And that it also includes the heading, which is not technically a part, it's called a heading. So episodes 1 through 6, we have 19 red flags. So up next is episode number 7. In episode number 7, we're going to be talking about part 6, which is governance, management, and disclosure. That's going to be very, very interesting. That part is going to be very interesting. We're talking about governance. Wow. Right? What kind of governance? Management, and disclosure. So that's going to be a very interesting episode. Again, this is Susan Woods, and thank you so much for your time, for your support, for your encouragement. I thank my Black Lives Matter private investigators for sending me information in email or by adding information to the comments in this YouTube page. Thank you so much for doing that for me and helping me. I hope to continue, not hope, but I plan to continue providing updates as much as I possibly can. Thank you again for your support and have a great day.